One night, Mike knew something was horribly wrong when his daughter, Taylor, came home in tears several times. However, she was very vague when he questioned her about the reasons for her unhappiness. In an attempt to find out what was bothering his daughter, Mike devised a plan. Whatever it took, he would find out the truth. Mike was very protective of his 8-year-old daughter, Taylor. He was very proud of her. Thus, he wanted to find out what made her unhappy when she became very upset about something. Although Taylor was afraid to speak up, Mike and Tiffany were concerned about her well-being. As soon as Mike knew what he needed to do to help his daughter, he put together the perfect plan. A bubbly and energetic 8-year-old, Taylor was full of energy. Cycling and playing outside were two of her favorite activities. Because of her many friends, she loved school especially. Her teacher also favored her because she was an ace in schoolwork. The overall performance of Taylor was exemplary. After Taylor decided not to go, things quickly changed. When Mike picked Taylor up from school as he always did, everything began to unravel. When his little girl waved goodbye to her friends and hurried into their family car, that was the highlight of his day. Mike would usually make the trip home extra special on most days. For Taylor's favorite, an Oreo McFlurry, they would go through McDonald's drive-thru. Taylor never even waved at her friends when she ran to the car one day. In her car, she wore a stern expression. "Hey, Pumpkin, is everything all right? How was your day?" he asked. Then Taylor buckled up her seatbelt and sat back down. A treat at McDonald's was Mike's first priority. Mike noticed that his daughter seemed to be troubled on the way home. However, she didn't want to talk, and he didn't want to push her. After they arrived home, she just went to her room. Mike saw that she had been crying as she sat there for hours. "What's wrong, sweetie? Do you want to talk about it? What's bothering you?" But Mike just couldn't get through to his daughter. There was no sign that she wanted to discuss the subject. Ultimately, Mike decided not to bother with it. "Tomorrow is another day," he said to himself. If things were better, they would be. He didn't realize how far off he was until it was too late. The next morning, Taylor fought to get out of bed to go to school. It was all she could do to stay at home. Eventually, Mike and Tiffany grew tired of Taylor's excuses and made her put on her clothes. She sulked the whole way to school while Tiffany drove. After she got out of the car without so much as a goodbye kiss, Tiffany became very concerned. As the day wore on, things only got worse for the Reeves family. There was no improvement in Taylor's situation. This time around, she was even worse. As the day wore on, things only got worse for the Reeves family. There was no improvement in Taylor's situation. This time around, she was even worse. As his daughter got into the car, Mike could see she was in a bad mood again. "Hey, should we go get some yummy ice creams? I'm sure it will make you feel better," he suggested. Taylor, however, had other plans. "No, I just want to go home," she said. In silence, Mike drove home. There was nothing he could do. They didn't know what the problem was because their daughter wouldn't tell them. It was decided that he would speak with her again that evening. School was in session, so it was time to find out what was happening. That evening, after dinner, Mike and Tiffany sat down with Taylor in her room. They wanted to have a heart-to-heart conversation and find out what was bothering their little girl. "Hey, Taylor, I've noticed that you've been really unhappy lately. Is there something going on at school that you're not telling us about?" Mike gently asked. Taylor fidgeted with her stuffed bunny and avoided eye contact. "I don't want to go to school, Daddy. I just don't like it anymore," she finally whispered, tears forming in her eyes. Mike's heart sank. He could tell there was more to the story, but he didn't want to pressure Taylor. Instead, he decided to take a different approach. "Sweetie, I understand that sometimes school can be tough, but I'm here to help you. You know you can tell me anything, right? Mike said, trying to reassure her. Taylor nodded slowly, her lower lip trembling. I just don't want to go anymore. Can we move so that I can go to a different school, please, Daddy? Mike and Tiffany looked at each other. They knew that it wasn't possible to move. This time, Tiffany sprang in. Honey, I know it's difficult, but we can't move. We have to sort out your problem so that you can be happy again. But when Taylor heard that, she was not happy at all. She didn't want to talk to her parents anymore. As the days went on, Mike couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. He observed Taylor closely, noticing her growing reluctance to leave the house, her diminished appetite, and her general withdrawal from activities she once enjoyed. It was clear that Taylor was battling with some hidden fears. Mike and Tiffany were at their wits' end. Mike decided to take a day off from work to stay home with Taylor. He hoped that spending more time together would encourage her to open up about what was troubling her. He saw that the day home from school had really done wonders for his daughter. She even smiled a few times as they prepared snacks together. But he didn't know if he would be able to get her to open up. He then took his chance once again. Pumpkin, do you want to tell Daddy why you're so unhappy at school? I promise I won't be angry. I just want to help you. In an instant, it was as if Taylor had clammed up, and she began getting nervous. Mike could see the fear that gripped her, and all he wanted to do was help her. At this point, Mike just felt helpless as Taylor ran off to her room, undoubtedly to cry. He had tried his best with her, and even a day off from work to spend with her did nothing to help the cause. He needed to really think of something now. His daughter was clearly in dire need of help, and the longer he left it, the bigger chance it had of the situation getting much worse. It was then that Mike had a light bulb moment go off in his head. What if there was a way to be at school with Taylor without actually being there, he thought. He knew just exactly what he needed to do. He went down to the garage, where he kept his usual supplies. He hoped that his plan would work. When Taylor was asleep that night, he snuck into her bedroom to take her school backpack. He took it to his work table in the basement and began work on his plan. He knew it was a sneaky plan, but it was the only way he could figure out what was going on. Within an hour, the hidden camera was secured to Taylor's backpack without being visible. The next morning, Taylor was reluctant to go to school as usual. However, this time Mike had a small glimmer of hope. He watched as Taylor reluctantly put on her backpack and made her way out the door. With his heart pounding, Mike hoped that Taylor wouldn't discover the hidden camera and remove the device from her backpack. The day seemed to stretch on forever as Mike anxiously waited for the time to fetch Taylor from school. When she finally got into the car, Mike's heart sank as he saw her slumped shoulders and downcast eyes. As per usual, he drove to McDonald's to get her a special after-school treat. She was grateful, but it didn't lift her mood too much. Taylor trudged into the house, and Mike didn't have a chance to get to her backpack just yet. It would seem too suspicious. He had to wait until nightfall, when both Tiffany and Taylor were asleep, for him to review the findings of the day. His nerves were shot thinking about what he was about to see. As soon as his wife Tiffany and his daughter Taylor had laid their heads down to sleep, Mike took his chance. He quickly went to Taylor's room to retrieve the backpack with the hidden camera. His hands shook as he walked down to the basement. His forehead had beads of sweat that were dripping as he walked down the stairs. He sat at his work table and connected the device to his laptop. It was time to see what exactly was going on. He didn't know what to expect. All he knew was that this was for his daughter's own good. He played back the footage, his heart pounding even louder in his chest. He watched with bated breath as he watched his daughter's point of view of the whole day. What would he uncover? What he saw on the screen left him horrified and angry. The footage revealed a group of older kids taunting Taylor, making fun of her, and even taking her belongings. It was evident that she was being bullied, and the culprits were caught on camera. Mike shed a tear as he watched his defenseless daughter try to stand up for herself. As Mike watched the footage, a wave of fury washed over him. How could anyone be so cruel to his sweet, innocent daughter? His protective instincts kicked into overdrive, and he knew he had to take immediate action. He showed the footage to Tiffany, who was equally outraged. "We can't let this continue," she said with determination. "We need to talk to the school and put an end to this." The next day, Mike and Tiffany marched into the school principal's office, armed with the evidence from the hidden camera. The principal, Mr. Thompson, watched the footage with a mix of shock and concern. "I had no idea this was happening," he admitted, clearly taken aback. "I promise you, we will address this immediately. No student should ever feel unsafe or bullied in our school." Mike and Tiffany left the meeting cautiously optimistic that the situation would be resolved. They promised to do everything in their power to end the bullying once and for all. They felt horrible that they didn't do something sooner. Taylor had been suffering for so long, but that would soon change, and they knew, however, that their battle was far from over. In the days that followed, tensions at the school escalated. The bullies were confronted and disciplined, but their anger seemed to intensify. Taylor's already difficult situation grew worse as the bullies retaliated against her for getting them in trouble. Mike and Tiffany watched helplessly as their daughter became even more withdrawn, her fear and anxiety palpable. They knew they had to do something before things spiraled completely out of control.